You can set your watch by it. Year after year, soon after the NFL Combine finishes, stories come out about the ridiculous question certain NFL teams have asked draft prospects during the interview process in Indianapolis. And year after year, proponents of the practice try to spin the narrative as a necessary absurdity in order for franchises to understand the psyche of players before they commit millions of dollars to them. It's BS. The interview process is important, sure, but the NFL's style of outside-the-box questioning would questionable even if it were administered by trained professionals, and it's useless in the hands of the dopes who run NFL teams. These guys have enough trouble pulling their challenge flags out of their socks, and we're supposed to believe they're adept at making complex psychological evaluations based on their best Howard Stern impression? Please. This year the victim of this flawed system was former Texas cornerback Chris Boyd, who was reportedly asked by one team if he had both of his testicles. I have been to a scouting combine or two, okay, this my 33rd, and I have now heard an entry to the crazy question I've never heard before, this today from Texas CB Chris Boyd, do I have both of my testicles? And I was like, yeah, I don't know why you got to ask, tweeted ESPN senior writer Jeff Legwold. As a cornerback, it seems like teams should be more concerned with his coverage skills and how he plays the ball, instead of worrying about his, never mind. Boyd's situation is just the latest example of this bizarre trend that takes place every year at the Combine. Do you find your mother attractive? When did you lose your virginity? Is your mother a prostitute? Would you use a gun or a knife to murder someone? Would you share your internet history with us? Boxers are briefs. Then there's the story of former New York Giants and current New Orleans Saints cornerback Eli Apple and his interview with the Atlanta Falcons. I've been asked a lot of weird questions. I don't know if I could say on TV, Apple said on Comcast Sportsnet's Breakfast on Broad in 2016. The Falcons coach, one of the coaches, was like, so do you like men? It was like the first thing he asked me. It was weird. I was just like, no. He was like, if you're going to come to Atlanta, sometimes that's how it is around here, you're going to have to get used to it. I guess he was joking, but they just ask most of these questions to see how you're going to react. What does Apple's sexuality have to do with how he plays football? No matter who Apple does or doesn't sleep with at night, he was talented enough to be the 10th overall pick of the 2016 NFL Draft. After what happened with Michael Sam and conversation about gay athletes in the NFL, and in sports, you would think that a multi-billion-dollar franchise like the Falcons would have enough compassion, or good judgment, not to ask questions about that. It's not as though questions about a person's moral and ethical judgment are out of place in an interview. They could help franchises avoid big, embarrassing scandals. But perhaps those questions would be better trained on the people in the owner's suites than the ones on the field. Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay was suspended in 2014 for 6 games and had to pay a $500,000 fine after he was charged with operating a vehicle while intoxicated and for possession of a controlled substance. Irsay had oxycodone and/or hydrocodone in his system when he was pulled over for doing 10 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone. Before former Houston Texas owner Bob McNair passed away last year, he infamously said, "We can't have the inmates running the prison," when the conversation about player protests were at their peak. During that same time period, it's also believed that Lions owner Martha Ford tried to pay her players not to kneel. And then there's the case of Patriots owner Robert Kraft, who has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree solicitation due to his visits to a massage parlor in Florida, in which he's on videotape receiving oral and manual sex from a woman. His charges are part of a prostitution ring involved in human trafficking. One could argue, would you share your internet history with us, would be a more fruitful question posed to ownership. Every year, young men with hopes and dreams of playing in the NFL are grilled with stupid questions that have little to do with how good of a football player and investment they will be for a franchise, and still less to do with what kind of men they really are. NFL players have made mistakes, embarrassing ones. So have NFL coaches, owners and executives. Only one of those groups is placed under pointed, ridiculous scrutiny for no crime beyond wanting to work for the NFL. Someone ought to ask the league some tough questions about why that is.